grateful that Allah SWT has given us the chance, okay, to have our discourse for today. And we have with us, okay, Dr. Maisarah Hasbullah, okay, Senior Lecturer at the Department of Science and Technology Studies at the Faculty of Science, University of Malaya, where she will be sharing with us her topic, which is AI and Human Autonomy, Philosophical and Islamic Inquiry. Okay, so before we begin, maybe to remind everyone, okay, later on to sign in the I attend, okay, for your attendance. And also our session is also live stream at our KICT Media YouTube channel. Okay, so before we begin, maybe just some introduction, okay, to Dr. Maisarah. So Dr. Maisarah Hasbullah is a senior lecturer at the Department of Science and Technology Studies, Faculty of Science, University of Malaya. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Policy and Management of Science and Technology, Master of Science in Philosophy of Science and Policy Management of Science and Technology, and PhD in History and Philosophy of Science from University of Malaya. So we can say that Dr. Maisarah is a true blue science and technology studies scholar. Okay. So I happened to get to know her while I was doing my PhD at the department as well. Okay, so we were doing our PhD more or less at the same time, okay, but with different supervisors. Okay, Dr. Maisarah's research interests involve epistemological and sociological dimensions of science and the interface between science and religion and current issues in science, technology, and innovation, or STI. So this includes artificial intelligence ethics and halal science, where she approaches these themes through interdisciplinary perspectives, combining history, philosophy, and sociology of science with considerations of local culture, religion, policy, and environmental sustainability. Dr. Maisarah has led and contributed to numerous research projects at national and international levels. As a principal investigator, she had directed studies such as the immunomodulatory effect of food, herbs, and spices for COVID-19 prevention, exploratory case studies from Indonesia and Malaysia, from 2022 to 2023 as an international grant. Pembangunan kerangka etika agama dalam menangani impak kecerdasan buatan AI terhadap autonomi manusia, the development of ethical religious framework in handling the impact of artificial intelligence on human autonomy, FRGS 2023 to 2025, and multiple projects on Islamization of science and inclusive development for persons with learning disabilities. She has also collaborated on research funded by institutions such as IKIM, the Malaysian National Commission for UNESCO, and the All-Party Parliamentary Group Malaysia APPGM. Her scholarly outputs includes books, chapters, and journal articles in both local and international publications. She has published in Philosophy East and West, Journal of Urban Technology, History of Education, and also Al-Shajarah, the journal from ISTEC, among others. Her work ranges from historical analysis, such as the transmission of Western science to the Ottoman Empire, to philosophical inquiries into AI, the human-machine relationship, and Islamic perspectives on science and modernity. Through her scholarship, teaching, and community engagement, Dr. Maisarah Hasbullah continues to contribute meaningfully to the understanding of science in its broader human, cultural, and ethical context, bridging global debates with local realities in Malaysia and the Malay world. So without further ado, I hand over the session to Dr. Maisarah. Dr. Maisarah, you can proceed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aznan, for your introductions about myself, and also thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me for today's intellectual discourse, Islamic intellectual discourse, especially in UIA. So I've never been there for to give a talk, and this is my first time. Okay, thank you so much. I think I'll start with share my slides. Everyone, can you see my slides? Okay, so thank you so much. So I think Okay, so the topic for today is I try to look at the angle of AI and human autonomy from the philosophical and Islamic inquiry, but basically from my perspective, which I'm familiar, is science and technology studies. So I hope that my talk today can give some kind of new input, especially in front of the lecturers of ICT in UIEM. So wait, yeah. Okay, so this is the outline of my presentation. So basically, I will give us very brief definitions of AI and human autonomy, and also some historical roots, especially when we talk about philosophy of technology. And then my focus of my talk much more focus on humanities, philosophy, and technology. And my central question is that how do technology and society influence each other? So to explain about these relationships, I would like to see in different perspectives, which I look at from current three perspectives. And then from this theoretical framework, I would like to apply to the current technological innovations and advancement, especially in AI. And I try to look at and relate to the contextual, local contextual, which I believe that Malaysia has developed articles, principle, and many others to govern AI, and some conclusions. So I think I just skip this definition because I think this is, I mean, the audience much more familiar with the definitions of AI. And this is actually definitions I refer from the Malaysian National Artificial Intelligence Roadmap. Okay, so I think I give a brief introductions about how do I mean by human autonomy. So I think from the philosophical perspective, we do have quite various definitions and also argument and also debate about human autonomy. Yeah, from the Islamic, from the Western or from the Asians, yeah, perspective. And my point is that, okay, there are many competing theories about theory of autonomy. Okay, then I think what I try to highlight is that here is that autonomy is the capacity to form belief and desires that are authentic and in our best interest, and then act on them. And what I concern about the human autonomy is that our ability, especially in terms of how our ability as a human being to make decisions, and whether we are influenced much more on the AI system, or maybe the AI system influence something like that. It's much more on our autonomy to make a decision based on AI system. Okay, so a bit about philosophy. So I think most of us, okay, are quite familiar with the term philosophy, and I think sekejap ya. Okay, so I think there are many branches of philosophy. Okay, so for example, we talk about ethics, okay, which we see that's very close related to us. So ethics is basically the branch of philosophy that talks about what is values, for example. So we know that different in society or maybe perspective may have different types of ethics. And philosophy also, we also talk about metaphysics, okay? So what is real and so on. So also philosophy has a branch of aesthetics that discuss the definitions and also interpretation about what is, for example, beauty. And I am close related to the branch of epistemology. So for example, how do we know? Okay, so this type of philosophical issues much more using in the philosophy of science, okay? And then we also have logics is one type of philosophy, and how do we reason? And where are the branches, philosophy, applied philosophy, for example, political philosophy, and how should societies be governed, and many other things. So this is basically, we need to know that there are many branches of philosophy. Okay, so I would like to highlight much more on the fundamental things that for me can be easily understand and remember about philosophy. Okay, because I know that as, for example, student, it is quite new for them because it's too abstract. and conceptual. So basically from the historical perspective, okay, philosophy, it comes from two Greek words, okay, philos, love, and Sophia, wisdom. I always remind them. Let's say you want what you can, Sophia is wisdom, very good words that we can use. Okay, so the combination between philos and also Sophia, so that means the love of wisdom. So this is I think that naturally in ourselves we love of the wisdom, okay, to know more, to understand the truth, to explore something about nature, about anything that we want to know. Okay, so actually in ourselves, we have certain kind of tendency, okay, the love of wisdom in ourselves. And I also emphasize, for example, to the student and anyone that want to know about philosophy, philosophy is not a theory, but an activity. Why I said it is an activity? Because philosophy is actually practice the main activity, asking questions. Okay, so when we start asking questions and then we try seeking the answers to satisfy ourselves, so then it's actually we are practice philosophy in our life. So what I try to highlight is that philosophy is part of our life, and philosophy is very important for our life. Yeah. So don't think that philosophy is too weird, is too conceptual, but in a way we can do it, philosophy as an activity, by asking questions, seeking answer. So this type is very fundamental to in philosophy. Okay, so from I'm referring to our context for today, AI. So AI, from historical roots, I can say that AI, the debates in AI and the discourse on AI, we can refer to the philosophy of technology. And without to know the background, the historical perspective, I think we some kind of lack information about this type of philosophy of technology. So in ancient roots, okay, humans is normal. Okay, humans have always made and used tools for survival, and it's called Homo faber, okay, tool maker. And about philosophical reflections, it's hard to trace exactly when it began, okay, but the reflections on the technology can at least trace back into antiquity in the Western world, but maybe are likely older than that. And then generally we understand about technology discovery addresses some aspect of our nature, okay? Fulfill a basic need or extend our faculties. So very simple example, for example, food and shelter are such needs and motivate some advances. Technologies like the automobile extend our feet, while computers extend our brains. So in a way, technology is rooted on the one side in knowledge of nature, and on the other in generic features of the human species. But however, okay, if you refer to the literature, okay, philosophy of technology can be recognized as a specialized discipline is more recent. And for example, Enquiry first used the term philosophy of technology in 1877. So compared to philosophy of science, philosophy of technology is much more recent. Okay, so from my expertise, okay, without talking about philosophy of science is quite weird. Okay, so then maybe I'll introduce, and then maybe many of us quite unsure about what is philosophy of science, and sometimes they call it philosophy of science and technology. Okay, but however, in terms of the term philosophy of science and technology is not common use. Okay, basically they say that philosophy of science and philosophy of technology are different types of branches. Okay, so I'm just referring a bit about philosophy of science here. So we know that I think that I am also familiar with philosophy of science, especially Islamic science, which one of the most prestigious field of philosophy, established philosophy. And basically, this field focuses on understanding the nature of science. And the scholars actually concerned about the truth of scientific knowledge, Then they try to do some validations, okay, the validity of theories and experimentations. And this type of activities in philosophy of science, okay, these are called epistemological issues, okay, which issues related to the theory of knowledge. And however, normally now we understand that science and technology very interconnected, okay? And yes, I agree that, but if you refer to historical perspective, it might be different. Okay, so I like to just highlight that some commonalities between science and technology. So both are rely on rational thinking, empirical observation, and also understanding of natural causality. But however, there are a key difference between two, science and technology, where science is actually knowledge or try to seek to know and discover truth, especially about nature. And however, technology is different type of knowledge, okay? Which focuses on usefulness and practical application. So you can see there are key difference here, okay, when we are talking about science and also when we are talking about technology. And the element of usefulness is very, very important in technology, okay? But however, the main idea of usefulness in all its details about, descriptions, the explanation about the usefulness is actually reflects, okay, the Enlightenment ideal of progress and improvement. So basically, Western-centric, okay, and normally we can find it in literature. And Feinberg emphasized that where science seeks to know, technology seeks to control. Then maybe we touch a bit about Greek concept of nature, making and knowledge, okay, because this is one when we are talking about philosophy of technology, we need to talk about this type of Greek concept about the making and knowledge. And these are some of the important words, okay, that then when we read it about history of technology, for example, physics, nature is not what physics we understand now, okay? So physics related to nature, so meaning that which creates itself, emerges on its own. So for example, plants, rivers, stars, they come into being naturally and represent self-generating existence. And two, poiesis, okay, sorry if I pronounce it wrongly, okay? And poiesis is talking about making or productions. It basically refers to human practical activity or making, or practical activity of making or producing something. So things created through poiesis are called artifacts. And for example, we have product of arts, objects of craft, and also social conventions. For example, in terms of system, we have laws, custom, and etc. And we have another important words, okay, when we learn about philosophy of technology is like technique, okay? So that means knowledge of making. So basically, technique, we are familiar with this term because it refers to the knowledge, discipline, or skill involved in a specific process, okay? So for example, in medicine, okay, healing the sick, okay, you need to have specific, what we call it, technique, okay, in medicine to healing the sick, or carpentry, okay, we need a specific technique, okay, to building with wood and so on. So therefore, okay, generally from the Greek view, each technique has a purpose and meaning for what is produced, okay, and also they have technai in plural, okay, show the right way to do things. So knowledge in technai is considered as objective, not a matter of personal opinion. Okay, so even the purpose of artifacts, okay, is defined by the technai. And now, as I mentioned earlier, the word technique is the root of modern terms like technique and technology, and though meanings have evolved. Okay, so now we move on to my context of my talk today. So I'm trying to introduce a bit about philosophy of technology because I want to explain that when we are talking about AI or current technology, we must specifically refer to the philosophy of technology as our basis for debates or for discourse. Okay, so in this talk, I would like to define my my scope is that philosophy technologies that try to engage with technology which relate to society, culture, and history. So from this angle, it's normally we take this angle from the science and technology studies. Okay, and my focus much more looks at the relations between technology and society and between technological change and also social change. And when you refer to the literature, we have some kind of two different approaches in philosophy, in studying technology and society, and again, in philosophy and technology. For example, we have approaches in engineering philosophy and technology, which focuses on engineering practice, technological artifact, design, and technological knowledge. So I think maybe expert in ICT, they are much more familiar with this type of approaches, engineering philosophy of technology. However, the other types of approach, okay, which we can take to explain about philosophy of technology studies, okay, is from the angle of humanities philosophy of technology. Okay, so which in this approach, we try to focus on technology as a social, cultural, and also historical phenomenon, and how it's actually relation to the society. Okay, so now for my purpose of my talk, I would like to much focus on this only perspective, which humanities philosophy of technology, which I much more familiar. Okay, so I think the key thinkers, you're familiar with the social science and so on. So key thinkers in the humanities philosophy of science, we are always referring to Heidegger and also Hillel. And their view, okay, is actually represent the first perspective in relation to science and in technology and also society. So according to them, okay, normally, generally, technology is an autonomous force that shapes and determines society. And this point of view is still important in popular discussions about technology. And however, in terms of literature, we can see that there is a shift, okay, since the 1980s, where professional philosophy of technology has moved toward new views, which influenced by Wiener and also and the rise of science and technology studies. So as I think science and technology study is much more field. We try to integrate between different discipline, okay, much more interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary in nature. And formally, it's also been known as science and technology and society. But however, after 1980s, okay, it's a new brand in this science and technology society. And now we are much more well known by science and technology studies. So studies that mean it carries certain elements of multidisciplinary studies. Okay. So then humanistic philosophy of technology also, we have different views that technology is human product shaped by human interests, values, and will. And also we are, what we call it, it's evolving. And where now we can see the third view is much more recent, but it still have connected with the older views, okay, which look at technology and society co-evolve, and technology can be self-contained at times and leads to unexpected and also unintended consequences. Okay, so what I try to say is that these three types of perspective, okay, we can see in the current debates, okay, and especially, for example, when we talk about AI, okay, so there are thinkers that try to portray AI fear by using popular concern that AI may take over human reflect, okay, may take over humans. And also, for example, there are also writing on AI values that try to call for ethical guidelines and values in AI development reflect, okay, calls for ethical guidelines and values in AI development. So, but however, the main goal in humanities philosophy technology is try to understand, okay, how technological change relate to social change, okay, and our core assumptions is that each perspective sees some development, even though, yeah, as threat, and at the same time we look at others as opportunities. And therefore, when we try to acknowledge, okay, celebrate, appreciate different views, and we understand that, yeah, in one view, maybe technology, they have certain of views that technology is malleable, so that mean can be shaped by society. And maybe in other words, technology is there's also views that technology is given unchangeable and outside control. Okay, so what for me is very important to understand these three perspectives is that these views actually shape how we interpret technology and also its role in society and what we consider as possible and desirable. Okay, so then I move to my main content, okay, of my talk is that what are my central questions? Okay, so I try to highlight much more simple questions. How do technology and society influence each other? Okay, so I understand that there are many answers to these central questions, but in terms of this talk, I try to see from the three perspectives that technology as autonomous force, technology as human construct, and more current debate on technology society co-evolutions. So I'll go one by one to the three perspectives on technology and society. Okay. So the first perspective, okay, I would like to highlight about technology as autonomous and determinate force. Okay, I think many of us also familiar with this type of perspective. Okay, the key thinkers here is Ilal and Heidegger and many others. And the main idea that they believe technology as an autonomous force. Okay, because their view is that technology actually develops independently of human control and determines society and also social change. And for example, we look at the Ilal's view about how technology evolved by its own logic, prioritize efficiency. Okay, in Ilal view, sometimes we can control the technology because technology is actually evolved according to their own logic. Okay, for example, camera, it has its own types of technology. And for example, we can improve it according to that logic. And also they prioritize efficiency. So let's say the technology itself can be much more simpler or maybe lebih murah, okay, or maybe for example, easier to produce and so on, and it create efficiency. So according to Ilal, okay, so it involves it gives a higher prioritize on the efficiency. So that means the much more technology the efficiency is much more higher than it's much more easier to evolve. Okay, and as stated in his book, The Technological Society, which described technology as an autonomous force that develops largely independently from human choices. So we don't have really choice to author or maybe to ask the technology to develop according to our needs or our will. So then, according to her also, this type of technology stands for a certain way of relating to reality and for certain values and preeminently efficiency. On the other hand, okay, the other thinkers also Heidegger look at technology with a big T, okay, not just a specific tools. So that means big T is not Heidegger mentioned about technology itself, but also maybe the framework of thinking that carry behind, okay, the technology involvement and so on, development and so on. And Heidegger emphasizes that technology actually shapes how we see and relate to reality. And the essence of technology, okay, is and the most important is that an instrumental relation where everything about nature, humans appear as a resource or a means to an end. So Heidegger focused that, yeah, technology is just look at nature, human as a resources and to achieve certain target, certain functions and so on. So it's actually appeared in his essay, okay, The Question Concerning Technology in 1962. And other Western scholars who mentions that technology as autonomous and also determinate force. For example, Jasper in Man in the Modern age, so describe the impact of modern technology on human life. And also Mumford, okay, wrote on modern monotechnics. So sees technology as an autonomous determinate force. So he wrote that, yeah, technology is only can develop, okay, and also determinate force by using a monotechnic, which referring to modern technology only. And also there are also Frankfurt School, which has quite similar internal critics about technology. Okay, in one-dimensional man, for example, critique technology as a form of modern ideology, and also Habermas is on science and technology as also as ideology. So I think the most important key points here is that they try to see technology as autonomous and also really determined force in society, can shape the society. And if you are aware, there are also different types of what we call it concept, what we call it, for example, techno determinism. Okay, so it's quite similar and classified under this perspective. Okay, so techno determinism, for example, it's try to explain about technology dictates societal change, and the Western, for example, and the author in this techno determinism discourse is actually share view that technology is seen as an autonomous force and quite difficult or impossible to resist. And they are linked with the modern technology, okay, which link to certain values and a dominant way of relating to reality. And the key assumptions is that, yes, of course, autonomous development. Okay, so technology developed by its own laws with little room for human choice and deterministic impact, which technology strongly determines society and social change. But there are also two camps in this perspective. So in the literature, we can see camp, for example, school of thought, a techno-optimist. So it's popular, it's many writing in the popular culture and among philosophers. So they believe that technology is inevitable and will bring progress. But also, there are also second types of techno-pessimists. Okay, so for example, Elal and Heidegger, they see that technology as inevitable, but they also stress its negative impacts. Okay, so but normally two camps they believe that technology as autonomous and determinate force, and you can read common assumptions. Okay, so for example, they always say that technological progress is inevitable. New technologies will eventually be used anyway. We can't uninvent technology once it exists, and we must adapt to new technological realities. So this type of common assumption is actually imply this type of two camps. And popular culture influence, for example, progress inevitable, yeah, you can uninvent technology. And from the technological determinism point of view in America, for example, by late 19th century, belief grew that technology determines human event. And in terms of advertisings in early 19th onwards, they actually promoted the idea that new technologies bring personal benefit and social progress. So this all discourse is actually represent perspective one. And okay, and techno-pessimist, okay, themes always appear, for example, in movies or novels, okay, fictions and thought, okay, and also it's voices not only by the artists, but also scientists and also engineers. Okay, so we can see these are types of examples. For example, Frankenstein, fear of human creation turning against us, and another, for example, Francis Bacon of reflections on technology's role in society. And Bill Joyce's essay, for example, voices the concern that advances in robotic genetics and nanotechnology could destroy humanity. Okay, so therefore, okay, this type of techno-pessimistic writing and thought is, yeah, they try to highlight technology as an autonomous and indeterminate forces, but in terms of fear of machines taking over, okay, and keep threatening in culture and also science. Okay, about these types of views, okay, even though they agree that technology as autonomous, but however, they had slightly different views on values. Okay, for example, in terms of human choice, in technological development, whether it is limited or absent. Okay, so if we refer to the techno-optimists, okay, they associate technology with positive values. So that means values like social progress, prosperity, freedom, and democracy. But the techno-pessimists, okay, they're likely referring to negative values, okay, technology with negative values, such as even though efficiency is too high efficiency, instrumentalism is more on materialistic part of it, dominations of human, okay, it's long-term effect and social alienations, even human extinctions. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, they shared view, but both see technology as an autonomous process that drives and determines societal change. And okay, so as we can see that this is quite straightforward for techno-optimists. Okay, there is no issue with technology being beyond control. So because they see that see it as leading to progress and positive values. But however, in terms of the camp of techno-pessimists, okay, so they try to see that there's something wrong, okay, if we just continue the energy as it is. And they try to seek an escape route, but options still are limited, okay? Some of them maybe try to abandon modern technology. Some of them suggest that we should return to older, or we should to revalue older, more human forms of technology. Or maybe some of, for example, Elal, okay, he embraced non-technological ways of living. For example, we're referring to religion, or Heidegger maybe poetry is one way, okay, how to weaken voices and then try to look at the intrinsic element of poetry to become much more, what we call it, closer to the more human forms of technology. So so these are, even though they are similar with certain views, but also they have different solutions or different kind of critics. Okay, now we go to the second perspective, okay? Because we see from the first perspective, it's much more, what we call it, autonomous, technology as autonomous, and unlikely we can change it. But however, perspective two much more promising, where they try to see technology as a human product shaped by human interests and values. Okay, so the main idea is that radically different from perspective one and much more diverse. Okay, and also, but the option is that for remedying a potential negative effect of technology and also technological change. Okay, so they try to turn into different types of character that they see technology as a human-made construct, okay, human-made character of technology. And the implication is that technologies are shaped by human interests and values, and it open to human choice. Okay, and I like to point views from Venus, okay, because he highlight technology's value and power laden. Okay, so in his essay, for example, do artifacts have politics? Okay, of course, he strongly mentioned that some technology are inherently political. So as we know, for example, the clear example, the atomic bomb, okay, requires authoritarian control. It's not too easy to control the bomb. So it needs some kind of political supports, okay, to control this. And some technologies also reflect politics through design choices. Okay, so for example, the design of campus building and plazas, okay, designed to prevent student demonstration in the US during the late 1960s and early 1970s. So the broader point here is that I would like to emphasize that in autonomous technology, we notice that technology seems autonomous, but this is due to our misconceptions, okay? So for example, in the perspective one, we see that we cannot change, okay, the technology because it's autonomous and beyond our control. But we says that it is our misconceptions, okay? We can do something, okay? Okay, so not in true sense. For example, that Ilal and Heidegger says that the technology we cannot change because it's very autonomous. But Wiener says that we can do something to mold again the technology to get it to in line with our path, our perspective, and so on. So these are the main idea from the Wiener point of view. Okay, beside Wiener point of view, the most what we call it, not the most, one of the popular views in science and technology studies is constructivist approach. Yeah. It's quite similar in the philosophy of science, where we have a social constructivist movement, okay, which started from Thomas Kuhn, okay, and different perspective of knowledge and so on. In the philosophy of technology is quite similar, okay, because they have a constructivist approach where try to emphasize the role of social and cultural factors in shaping the development, adoptions, and impact of technology. And they emphasize that technology is a product of human intentions, okay, social circumstances, and also cultural context. And we have also Scott model, okay, ataupun our social constructions of technology, where in that model, okay, it's emphasized on technology is shaped by social groups and their interpretations, and technological artifacts are interpreted by different social groups, okay, which have different views, and therefore we will have different possible development paths. And the key point here from the Scott model is that factors, okay, there are many factors, okay. For example, the state of technological knowledge, or what is technically feasible at certain times, is actually do not seem to have an independent place in the model, okay, because they see that technology is seen as purely a human construct, okay. So that means, yeah, anything human can interfere, human can construct it. And then these types of views also, it has certain influence in other second and third generations of Western thinkers, okay, such as Finberg and also Donite. Okay, so by basically, when we look at the perspective two, second perspective, okay, technology as a human product shaped by human interests and values, is actually try to bring more plural view, okay. There is no single technology, because, for example, when we look at different technology, it might have certain types of technology. So we cannot just, for example, we need to, each technology should be assessed separately, yeah. So the assumption is that technology is a human product and social construct and open to human choices. And technology is value-laden, and different design can embed different values, and new technologies can be shaped by human interests and values. So there are three basic assumptions on this perspective. And therefore, the implications of these types of views is that technology may differ in their normative qualities, so depending on design choices and also human decisions. So, for example, maybe electric car, okay? So we know that electric car is technology, but it's carry their normative qualities. For example, who drive the electric car, it's also bring the quality of environmental friendly, much more cheap, whatever. So it has certain normative qualities that actually depending on design choices and human decisions. And also maybe wheelchair, electric wheelchair. So it carries certain normative qualities, for example, wheelchair for disability people, and that it carries that we emphasize on the freedom of mobility, yeah, for the OKU, as for the disabilities people. So these are types of understanding what we call it normative qualities. Okay, and these types of views is actually quite popular, okay, in the media, and also it has certain influence in policy and also non-philosophers. Yeah, public also it easier these types of understanding can embed in their thinking and so on. Okay, because technology can be designed with values. Okay, so for example, referring to Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, for example, robot must not harm humans, robot must obey human unless it causes harm, or robots must protect themselves, okay, unless it conflict with laws A and S1 and 2. So the key idea here is that robots won't follow this law automatically. Okay, then human, okay, we must design them in, okay, to fill these types of laws in the robot. So incorporating values of ethical, okay, is very, very important in the designs of new technologies. Okay, and we can see, okay, in the design, okay, basis approaches like value sensitive design, also design for values. Okay, so these are types where the design which they actually emphasize that technology is human product that can deliberately shaped by ethical values. And yeah, VSD, embed ethical values into technology from the start. So there are also related approaches, for example, adopted design for values, incorporate values and ethical important to design, adopted in policy circle. So for example, there are tendency which shift from traditional technology assessment, which always predicting consequences, to modern approaches, which, for example, constructive technology assessment, which we try to do to get, for example, to design, okay, it's much more technology from the beginning, which we put ethical values in it, and also real-time technology assessment, which we always get feedback and we try to put it in the R&D and so on from the beginning. And the key idea is that anticipated consequences should feed back into design and R&D and leading to better value-sensitive technology. And therefore, this is very what we call interesting views that it has policy influence. Okay, so the ideas of value-sensitive design and assessment extended into policy circle. So there are approaches such as midstream modulations, which always think about ethical from the mid process of certain technological development. And also, I think most of us familiar with responsible research and innovations, or RI, okay, in the EU, which defined as the ongoing process of alignment research and innovation in the values, needs, and expectations of society. And the key idea here is that research and innovation should be society-driven and value-aligned. So basically, the second perspective much more focuses on technologies in plural and not technology as one monolithic force, and allows nuanced assessments and give way to govern technology development. And however, it may has its risks where we can say that may overestimate how much human can steer technological change. Okay, so these are type maybe risks that we think that we can control the technological change, but however, there are certain limitation or circumstances, okay, that maybe, yeah, give certain effect of the technological change. So moving that, we try to see the current discourse where the third perspective, okay, will try to emphasize on co-evolutions of technology and society. Okay, so this is much more current. We try to emphasize that starts from the idea of co-evaluation technology and society. And the key features here is that we try to recognize the technological non-malleability, okay? And also we emphasize that technology introduces novelty, and because of novelty, it will lead to unforeseen and unintended consequences. Okay, so therefore, the idea of co-evolution is very, very important, okay, to mention that technology and society mutually shape each other. And we cannot forget that non-malleability, yeah, is always what we call it take place and main factors where it can influence that technology is often hard to govern or steer. And we can see many explanations in literature. For example, technological complexity and scales, okay, because it's complex and it will bring uncertainty. And for example, technological momentum, where, for example, when they start the technology, so the momentum of technology is very fast, then be quite difficult to stop the technology. Yeah, and then the part dependence and lock in. So sometimes when the technology comes in and then develop and it creates some certain standard to certain technological development, and it's quite difficult to change the certain standard, okay? And technological regime, and of course, I think there are certain technological development which controlled by certain regimes, okay? And quite difficult for us to treat technology as general and so on. And a key point here is that in perspective 3, they emphasize that non-malleability is not just about technical in nature, okay? But also it has certain factors social in nature, okay? Due to organizations, due to economics, power institution, and etc. So the third perspective mentions that non-malleability, once the technology is established, okay, technology is hard to steer or change. And also we cannot deny that technology can bring novelty. Therefore, technology creates new things we cannot fully predict in advance. And we understand that, okay, by co-evolution of technology and society, it also brings opportunities, okay, and it may open new options to solve social or moral dilemma, but at the same time, it may bring threats, okay? It may bring unintended risks or undesirable side effects. So I think most of us are familiar with this current co-evolutions of technology and society perspective. Okay, so the three key assumptions here in this perspective is that co-evolutions, okay, we understand that technology and society shape each other. Non-malleability, so some aspect of technological development are hard to change and only partly open to human choice. And the third one, because it involves novelty and also unintended effects. So technology brings new unforeseen consequences, okay, maybe both positive and also negative. So from the perspective of from the perspective of sociological perspective philosophy, we see that the combinations of non-malleability, novelty, and also unintended assumptions actually result in the so-called dilemma of technological control. Okay, so this dilemma, technological control, is stated in the Coleridge dilemma. Yeah. So in Coleridge dilemma is actually mentioned two types of contradictory situations, okay, about how we actually can control technology. First, maybe let's say we control technology at the early stage, okay? Maybe technology is easy to change, but we lack knowledge, we lack information of its social impacts, okay? However, on the other hand, let's say we control the technology at the later stage. Okay, so at this time, we gain full knowledge of impact, but the technology is already entrenched and hard to change. Okay, so the implication of the dilemma is that it creates a dilemma in how to control and guide technology effectively. Okay, so basically this is what the third perspective, okay, of the relationship between technology and society. So there is a dominant response to this dilemma. Okay, so for example, one suggests that we aim for proactively steer technology in its early phase. Okay, so for example, during R&D and design phase. Okay, so for example, in terms of how we address knowledge problem, okay, we can increase anticipations and deliberations. So for example, we involve many stakeholders involvement, okay, from the beginning. So the strength of this, what we call it, response, is that it can help to address risk before technologies are entrenched. But however, there are certain issues or limited that some issues are hard or impossible to anticipate early on. Because sometimes, not many stakeholders want to involve, there are lacks of information, we don't know how to respond it, and so on. So even though it's beautiful in terms of idea, but in terms of implementation, it's still, can have certain problems. So alternative to the first response to solve that, to answer the dilemma. So this is, I think, in line with this perspective 3, okay, which we try to highlight the characteristic of co-evolutions of technology and society. Okay, so the strategy is that it try to avoid, or at least the lock-in of a new technology, and using this time for an extended period of experimentations and learning about new technology. So that means we use certain time for extended experimentation and learning. We try to introduce, for example, social experiment. And what we try to emphasize is that the concept of adaptability, flexibility, and iterative learning is very, very important to this. And for example, when we relate to RRI, responsible research, okay? So RRI goals aligning technology with values, needs, expectation of society is actually fit with this co-evolutionary thinking, okay? So we understand that technology may be harder to govern than expected, okay? Even with governance, unexpected consequences rise due to novelty. And co-evolutionary nuance that society's values, needs, expectation are not fixed, but evolve alongside technology. So no stable and permanent normative foundations. And other, for example, Swistra mentioned about techno-moral change. Okay, technological development can reshape values and also value change, okay, which I think ethical framework involved with technological progress. So in this third perspective, okay, co-evolution. So when we understand that technology and society co-evolution, there are also issues on moral experimentation and value change. Okay, so therefore we need to acknowledging value change. So it recognizes the new technologies create new realities and there's also new moral situations. So therefore, this new moral context may require new values to address them. And also in terms of novelty of technology, yeah, if technology truly brings novelty, then it may also bring new moral problems, okay? And this makes technological development a kind of moral experimentations. And in the process also, we can see that as technology evolves, we discover emerging moral issues. And society must then try to reinvent moral standards and values to evaluate and govern these technologies. To be easier to understand about co-evaluation, for example, we do social experimentation like drug trial. Okay, we emphasize on small scale tests first. Okay, so to develop technology development, we assume certain novelty. Something new emerged that did not exist before. And then from the novelty, we will create new situations where we can see, we try to see that social and moral context not been seen before. And because of this new situation, it will create new moral issues, which sometimes are often seen, ethical dilemmas, risk and opportunity. Then we do moral experimentation. So we test and learn through experiment. And then we maybe a bit do a reinvention or inventions of values. We try to adapting or creating new moral standard to respond. Okay, so from my earlier explanations about the three philosophical perspectives on technology and society, and I tried to adopt in the AI case, okay, artificial intelligence case, where I can see that the three types of perspective in technology and society we can adopt in how we actually discuss about the artificial intelligence. Okay, so first, yes, we know that technology is autonomous. Okay, so we have view AI as an inevitable development. From the optimist perspective, AI will drive economic growth, innovation, and social progress. From the pessimist point of view, AI could cause mass unemployment, inequality, or even human extinction. And we can see when we believe in the first perspective, okay, there is a policy implications, which we understand that, for example, governments and firms rush to invest heavily in AI to avoid being left behind. And actually, it creates a belief in inevitability fuels further AI development. So this is what the implications if we are referring to the first perspective. And yeah, so techno-pessimists often adopt this view, okay? And then yeah, from from my early explanations, okay, I try to quote some of techno-pessimists, okay. So for example, often adopt this view that technology as autonomous view. So for example, yeah, about the fear of AI, okay. For example, they always try to highlight potential danger, and also some of them offer few practical solutions for guiding AI development or managing social impact. Okay, so for example, adoptions of much more human technology, all the technology, and then so on that I mentioned earlier. And I just want to explain that, yeah, for example, some of the Muslim thinkers, okay, Prof. Dr. Osman also has taken an effort to try to give certain explanation from Islamic point of view about what is actually AI and the clash in natural intelligence, to see that we need to aware that even though they have a positive impact of technology, but also we need to aware the negative impact of it. So the interesting is that he tried to see much more fundamental elements which he actually stress on philosophy of science again and philosophy of technology. And we need to go back from the Islamic perspective, where we need to see the elements of knowledge from Ibn Farabi, okay, and so on. So this kind of what we call it voices that I think is much more easy to understand from my perspective. And also Syed Hussein Nas, okay, it is quite what we call in early 2000 in his book Islam, Science, Muslim, and Technology. I think his approach is quite similar with Dato' Osman Bakar, okay. But however, he mentions that, I remember that he mentioned in his book that modern technology, it has elements of what we call it secularism, and what interpretations of technology from Islamic perspective is much different from Western perspective, okay, because technology is actually, okay, and whatever it is, science, and need to fulfill our spiritual needs rather than, okay, we need to fulfill our spiritual need first, then physical needs and other things. And he also mentions that, yeah, modern technology, for example, car, even though it's we assume that this is good for our to easier for mobility and so on, but however, it's also increase carbon emissions and so on. Okay, so I think he's consistently, okay, mentioned the negative impact of modern technology. And also second perspective, where I think believe that technology can govern by human choice and ethics. So we can see that in terms of international level and also local level, there are principle, okay, ethical principle that in line with second perspective. So I go back to our local context where AI in governance. So we have national guidelines on AI ethics. And in IGE, okay, it's specific national guideline for stakeholders. It's not only for one stakeholder, but for end users of AI, policies makers in government, agencies, organizations, institutions, developers, designers, technology providers, and suppliers. So everything they try to put, okay, so different responsibility for all the stakeholders that involved in the AI. So there are ethical issues in AI. And one important point is that in AIG is that very clearly they mentions about the Islamic perspective and the core principle which we need to emphasize and do not overlook. Okay, so in terms of our local context is that we need to aware the Rukun Negara and also responsible AI. So belief in God and fairness, loyalty to king and country and transparency, supremacy of the constitution and rule of law, and also courtesy and morality and human dignity. So, and there are also specific page on responsible AI for an Islamic perspective. So this is very interesting, where in the national document is really clearly highlight this important of Islamic ethics, okay, which I think is much more in line with the second perspective of relationship between technology and also society. So I want to just quote, if we develop AI without any understanding of ethics, It will magnify our biases. If we develop AI without concern for its alignment with the human values, it will lack principle. So it is up to us to ensure the technology is designed and used responsibly. So these are from the Malaysian National AI Roadmap. Okay, mentioned about 7 principles: fairness, reliability, safety and control, privacy and security, inclusiveness, pursuit of human benefit, happiness, accountability, and so transparency. And then it further explained in details, okay, in the national guidelines of AI governance and ethics, okay, about the same 7 AI principles. Okay, so about fairness, about reliability, safety and control, privacy and security, inclusiveness, and so on. So these types of what we call it, much more in-depth, okay, can enable the factors such as culture, belief, and so on takes place when you want to govern AI. And of course, I think we are I think UIAM much familiar with the Maqasid Syariah. So when we talk about human autonomy, okay, so one of the close related is how we can actually preserve our mind or akal. Okay, and it clearly stated, for example, in publication in Amanah Rakib, where intellect akal is very important and it's essential necessities according to Maqasid or Islamic law. I would like to highlight a few interesting points from Dato' Osman Bakar, where he tried to see that in our discourse on AI, natural intelligence from the Islamic perspective may clash with the Western understanding of intelligence, okay? And when it adopted to the AI, it may certainly have what you call it, clash and so on. So natural intelligence, thus, in Islamic perspective, is significant by the term of akal, which usually translated as intellect or reason, which has angelic intelligence. Angelic intelligence is that he tried to mention that knowledge that received in prophet for prophet is not only from his observations, empirical evidence, but from angel. Okay, so that means the knowledge from the Islamic perspective, it has 2 different what we call it layers. Okay, it has angelic forms of knowledge and also worldly layers of knowledge. So that's why we cannot just compare directly natural intelligence from Islamic and also from the Western perspective directly. And when I try to answer my question about what is actually the ideal way to understand human autonomy, then I find this concept by Dato' Osman Bakar, prophetic intelligence, which actually the ideal prototypes of humanity and our own ideal in life, which we can see the character of Nabi and so on, how we actually portray or control or as what we call it to prototype of humanity to the ideal way is like what is actually the definitions of humanity or autonomy from the perfect angle of Islamic perspective. So I think I think I just go fast, okay, from my earlier discussions. So I can see that there is no perfect what we call it, solutions. Okay, so for example, from the perspective to, even though we can see that it's easier for us to link between AI and also ethics, but we need to aware the difficulty of global control. So for example, we aware that controlling AI may be harder than expected because AI provide also economic and military advantage, and the implication is that country may race to develop AI, ignoring ethical principles, and maybe some government less committed to responsible AI. So in a way, the result is that we understand that global governance of AI is very difficult. Another limited or maybe certain blind spot for perspective too is that because of the nature of novelty and unintended consequences. So we understand the AI nature is autonomous, adaptive, and learns unpredictably from its environment. So it may cause economic disruptions, and from that, okay, it's bring much more challenges idea about moral agency and so responsibility. So we can see from the perspective, for example, techno-pessimist, okay, where he look at the disruption as threat to humanity. But however, from second perspective, okay, we try to reject disruption for endangering core values, but try to bring more ethical values to overcome this problem. And the key issue is here, I aware that it's quite hard to anticipate or fully control the novelty of AI. And however, the third perspective, I try to support humans as a main agent, okay, moral agent, and not replace it. We try to bring more balanced views that AI can, we aware that both brings threat and also opportunities, but maybe we believe that value change or some moral conceptual shift may be desirable. And we also acknowledge the concept, the characteristic of co-evolution. So AI and society which develop together and influencing each other. And therefore, we still understand that our goal to design AI to support and enhance human capabilities rather than replace humans. And our vision, I think it is in line with the Islamic perspective, that AI as a tool for empowerment and building a better society. So, and also I think that I emphasize here is that the third perspective, we see AI as opportunities, but however, it still needs gradual introductions of AI into society. Okay, so opportunities, we see that this can enhance human capability, potential to improve society when aligned with values. But however, in terms of we need certain time to introduce to the society. So we need gradual introductions where AI should not be an uncontrolled, okay, and large scale social experiment, also small scale social experiment must take place. And we favor small scale, we try to guide social and moral experimentation, and also we emphasize that allow society to learn and adapt step by step. And for example, analogy to medicines is like a new treatment, okay, drugs or vaccine, AI should be tested and trialed before wide adoptions. And therefore, I hope that develop AI that support humans, improving well-being and avoid harmful load-in. I think that's all for today. So I think what I try to emphasize that the three perspective is actually appears in AI debate and discourse. But however, maybe the current one, the co-evolution perspective, it's combined insight and better reflects real world dynamic of this AI development. I think, thank you so much. Okay, I stop here. Thank you so much.
Okay, Jazakillah khair to Dr. Maisara, okay, for a very informative presentation on various aspects of philosophy of technology, and also making the connection with all the discussions that we have in relation to the current situation of artificial intelligence. Okay, so with that, we open the session for question and answer. Okay, our scheduled end time would be 12:30, but if there is more discussions or questions, we probably can go a bit more. We'll see how it goes. So yeah, I open to anyone who would like to pose a question. You can raise your hand and verbally, okay, ask, or maybe you can type it in the chat. Okay, and I will also try to monitor in the YouTube to see if there's any questions there as well. Okay, so with that, I open for question and answer.
Hello, Doctor. I just want to ask a question.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Azidatun binti Saidin from, I'm PhD student from COED, Kuliah of Education. So I actually saw the book that you referred to, which is, I couldn't see the full name of the book, but I would like to know what is that, the name on the author. What is the Islam, Muslim and Technology? I couldn't see the name of the book.
Okay, so yeah, let me see. Okay.
I saw the book
That one is like my textbook during my PhD. Okay, when I started to Islam, Science, Muslim, and Technology. It's conversation between, I think, Said Hussein Nas and also Muzaffar Iqbal. Islam, Science, Muslim, and Technology. The book is actually give a very simple descriptions and explanation. It's just that a conversation between Syed Hussein Nas and Muzaffar Akbar in a very simple way. And I really promote and I really advise students to read it. So at least we understand that the Muslim view in this way. Okay, so we have to understand from philosophical perspective and also the practical one. And yeah, I know that there are much more challenges in terms of the economic, the politics, and so on. But anyway, we still aware what we should do actually from the fundamental perspective. Okay, so the title is Islam, Science, Muslim, and Technology. I think conversations with Syed Hussein Nas and Muzaffar Iqbal.
All right, thank you so much. I really need that. Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. And maybe Dr. Aznan, maybe you maybe can just write the what we call the title of that book also. Yeah, it's really interesting and engaging, and I think it's easier to read and understand. Okay, so any other questions?
Yes, yeah. Any other questions? Thank you, Sister Azida Saidi. Not related to me. Yeah. Okay. Even though the same father name. Okay, right. Yeah. Any other questions? Please through the chat or you can ask directly. Okay. Maybe I can just throw one question. With regards to you were saying just now that sometimes technology can be self-contained. Does that mean that does that refer to the situation whereby people would sometimes describe technology as the black box? I mean, not knowing what's happening inside. Is that what it means actually?
Yeah, it can describe Tangier self-contains because yeah, in one way we can understand that way also. Okay, because sometimes to understand the AI, especially black box, yeah. So I think you are much familiar with the practical the technical terms of that. Okay. So as I mentioned in terms of black box also, for example, like self-contained, it may carry certain things that we do not know, and it carries certain certain ideologies, certain things that it's bring together with the technology itself. Okay, so for example, that yeah, as I mentioned earlier, about the normative character of technology, which yeah, which sorry, its own logic. Okay, so for example, like a camera. Okay, so we try to it has its own logic. Okay, and it's quite difficult for us to add some kind of values from ourselves. Okay, so that's I mean by self-contained technology. So also black box, if you refer to an AI and black box, okay, so sometimes it's quite different because the black box, they control themselves. Yeah. So I'm not sure how to explain it in technical terms. Okay, but however, as people who see the process itself, sometimes we from the data, it's like magic. We don't know how it process and suddenly it come with certain outcome that unpredictable, unintended. Okay, maybe that one when we try to explain it to relate with the AI.
Thank you, Dr. Mashara. Okay, any other questions?
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Dr. Liana.
Salam. I'm Liana from Kuliah ICT. So this talk is very interesting. So there's a lot of thing to think about. So not really a question lah. But just want to ask lah, is being like what you call techno pessimist is bad? Because I think mostly technology, right? We develop new technologies or we research new technologies, but usually in the end, only rich people or powerful people can have control on that one. So that's why you also talk about how we can coexisting with the technology, right? Because we cannot control it, and if we don't do that, eventually somebody else will like take control of the technology. So now our government is like pushing more into AI and so on. What do you think about this? Will it be expediting the laid off and so on, or um I'm just a bit confused on what else we can do to like, you know, coexisting with the technology. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Liana, for your questions. Interesting. So my presentations about the three perspective is that I try to portray all the perspective that we have when we try to explain about AI. Okay, and all the perspective is actually innocent. So that means you can have your own opinion, the other one can have their own opinion. So we cannot judge whether you give the best opinion and so on. So that's basically my perspective from the STS perspective. We try to portray to make just to recognize all the possible views that we have. So my point of view is that techno-pessimism also is very important. Okay, to warn us that we need to rethink again what we are doing. Is it we can continue, or we need to take a pause, or we can say that, oh, we can do something to change it. So I look at the techno-pessimist perspective from that angle. And from the sociological perspective also, okay, we can see that we can have various views, and therefore, okay, is just that we celebrate differences, we appreciate each other, then that's basically the basic practice when we do philosophy. Okay, so we try to think, and then we try to seeking the answer. So the answer, whether it's true or false, it depends on interpretations. And of course, from the Islamic perspective, we want to see our perspective, whether it is true or not. We have to go back to Al-Quran and Sunnah. So that's very clear cut, because we have the absolute source, okay, to determine whether it's true or false. But however, from the Western perspective, it's interesting because relativism is much more influence their thinking. So that means whether you are techno-pessimist or techno-optimist and other things, it's okay. Yeah, and for myself also, okay, but I think pessimism is very important, because I think it gives certain kind of critical interpretations about certain things. Okay, and also, yeah, how we can coexist. I think the best way that I understand now is that we need to realign our AI development with ethics. Okay, and of course, ethics, what we understand now, is much more in terms of basically from the Islamic perspective. Okay, so even though my perspective is much more secular perspective, no, Western perspective, but I take the spirits of Islamic civilizations, where when we study the history of Islamic civilizations, we understand that how the Muslim scholars is actually engaged with the Greek sciences, and then they try to translate and then assimilate, okay, the Greek sciences, and then bring to Islamic civilizations. So I can see this practice is that we have to learn to various types of knowledge and approaches. It's okay, because when we want to understand the other approaches, it needs some kind of our intellectual capability. So in terms of this spirit, I think to coexist with the AR and so on, so we need to do that, but how we in a more critical way. Okay, so in terms of government and so on, so I think in terms of policy, yeah, it has what we call it clear directions. And I think from the Muslim perspective, we do also accept that, yeah, AI can bring also benefit, and also we need to aware and critical to the negative impact of it. So for Liana, I think what we need to do now is we have to adopt AI critically in terms of the formulation, in terms of adoptions, in terms of distribution, in terms of how we adopt it, and so on. So yeah, I think, yeah, it is a process, ongoing process. And I think we can work together to make our better humanity for now and the future. So I think, I hope that I can answer your questions. So my answer is that very simple. Techno-pessimist is innocent. Techno-optimist also is innocent. So it's just we celebrate diverse perspective in understanding AI development.
Thank you, Dr. Maisara. Yeah. Okay, we still have time for maybe one or two more questions. So, if anyone has any questions, you can take this opportunity. Okay, yeah, yeah. So while waiting for maybe the questions to come in, we just to also mention that at the beginning, Dr. Maisara had shared about all the current we can see perspectives, yeah, with regards to philosophy and also philosophy of technology. So I mean, the fact of the reality is that conventional global understanding of philosophy is Western based, and of Greek in origin. Yeah. But so it is, we can say our current role, okay, on how we would want to build from this conventional understanding, a discourse that is more Islamic based, and we have seen some examples given by Dr. Maisara just now, okay, quoting from our rector, Prof. Osman Bakar, and others. So, as people within the field of ICT and computer science, okay, this is something that we can try to think about and work on it, in guiding our endeavors that are related, to technological studies and development within our field, yeah. Especially when we are looking into the fast changing situation of artificial intelligence.
Sorry, Doctor, can I
Yes.
just add
Sure.
something to
Yeah,
just
sure.
clarify about your question about self-contained technology?
Mhm.
Okay, so to just straightforward definition is that self-contained technology refers to a system, applications, or component that is designed to operate independently. So it's requiring minimal or on no external dependencies or resources. So when we look at the black box, yeah, so it's quite this element of technology self-contained is maybe related with that black box in an AI system.
Mhm. Thank you, Dr. Masana, for the addition. Okay. So I guess we have come to the end. Okay. Maybe some last call. Any any last questions? Okay. Okay. All right. So with that, okay, we come to the end of our session, okay, with Dr. Maisara, okay, and on behalf of the kuliah, okay, we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude for her to spending her time for us this morning in sharing some insights, okay, with regards to the situation, okay, of how we would want to understand, okay, the nature of technology, okay, within our society, okay, and would see how it would relate to the development of artificial intelligence, okay. So the presentation will be available on the KCT Media YouTube channel, okay, for anyone who would like to view it again. And I think before we end, okay, maybe we can have a photo session. So, yeah. So maybe we can get everyone to turn on their camera for our photo session. If you are not shy, okay. If not, then okay, we just proceed. Okay, so let me just in the meantime try and get things ready. Okay, all right. Okay, so give me one moment. Okay, so if everybody is ready, okay, so we'll take the photo. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, let's try one more time for. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so with that, we come to the end of our session. And again, okay, we would like to thank Dr. Maisara, okay, for sharing her thoughts with us. And inshallah, we will meet again in the next Islamization intellectual discourse. Let's end with tasbih kafara and salat al-nas. Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Maisara.
Yes, Dr. Aznan.
Thank you, Dr. Maisara and Dr. Aznan.
Okay, thank you so much.